Hello everyone, I wanted to do my next video about painting sins or things that we see wrong when you're painting. So I've just got 5 things that I want to focus on, and then the brush soap if you get a really bad brush. So I'll take them in order. The first one is know your paint. Know what each paint is capable of. So I've got some of the paints out here. The first one to say is, this is lino printing ink. So you need to read the front of the paint. We don't ever paint with this because it's too thick and it's for rolling and painting, not painting. In my room, they live on totally different sides of the cupboard, so you should not mix those up, but you do need to read the front of the paint that you use. So I'll put that one over there. We're not painting with that one. The 3 that are most common perhaps, we've got watercolour paint, very transparent, good for delicate work. We've got ready mix paint, so you need to read the front of it, ready mix paint. It's slightly thinner, slightly less opaque. It is cheaper, so if you're doing something that's quite wasteful, we would maybe prefer that you did it with this. And then this one is acrylic paint, so you can see the word acrylic there. Very important that you read your paint, know your paint. There's not necessarily one that's better than the other. They've all got pros and cons, or strengths and weaknesses. So second thing, when we get a palette out, if you're mixing, get one of these flat palettes instead, because then you've got room to mix. You put your paint all the way around the outside so that you've got room in the middle to mix. And when you get your paint out, no more than that really, sort of a 2p piece. Now when you take your paint from the palette, you need to take it only from the edge and just take a little bit like that. This is so that when you're mixing different colours, you don't mix, so say I've got yellow there, you don't mix a bit of yellow into the blue. So you take right from the edge, and this is my other thing, only the very, very tip of the brush should have paint on it. If you see the bit where the brush hairs and the metal meet, the metal bit's called the ferrule, you should never ever get paint in there. Otherwise what happens is the brush hairs splay, which just means they split. So I see some people picking their paint up like this, and then they paint with that. Firstly, you can't do nice delicate paint work with that, and then also you are going to ruin that brush. So even though I've given that a good rinse, there's still plenty of paint where the bristles meet the ferrule. And try to give that a really good wash. So this was a good brush at the start. Instantly already that's starting to split apart. Some bad ones from my brush box. Imagine trying to do a nice piece of painting with that. And that is only because someone didn't respect it, didn't clean it out properly. Or with that one. So if you don't respect your tip and watch the ferrule, you're going to ruin the brushes over time. And I'm sorry, but the only people who will suffer there is yourselves. Because you'll try and do a nice piece of painting and you'll have an awful brush. So we pick up with the tip, we pick up from the side. Now, when you first go to paint, the very tip of that is really, really loaded. So if you want a very fine line, you have to just dab the excess off on a paper towel. You should always work with a paper towel. So just pick a bit of that up, dab the excess off, and then we should be able to paint a nice delicate line. So, in terms of how we hold the brush, it is like holding a pen, but if you stick your little finger out, you find it gives you a wider base, and then you can rest your whole hand on the page. Another common mistake is to only hold your elbow on the table, because then you end up wobbling and moving around a lot. So if you rest your whole hand on the table, now if you want to paint circles, that's fine, you can rotate from your wrist, but if you're trying to paint straight lines, it's much better to hold your wrist fixed and only move your whole arm. So my wrist is fixed. Let's try paint some straight lines. Now if you get a brush that's absolutely awful, you can get the brush soap. It just lives in my drawer, so just ask me if you can borrow it. You get some water, you run it around the soap, not pushing too hard. You're just trying to work it up to a lather. and then you massage the soap into the brush. It might need 2 or 3 goes, but what you'll find is some of that old dry paint that's really stuck in there starts to come out, and you can just gently coax it back to having a nice tip. If you're not going to use it, you can leave it tip side up in the brush pot on my desk, but if you want to use it straight away, just give it another rinse and then start painting with it. And as you can see, that's now got a much nicer tip than it had a minute ago. So just to recap those really quickly. First one, get the right type of paint. Read the tub, no acrylic, thick, opaque, no ready mixed. Don't ever paint with printing ink. Put your paint at the edge of your palette, pick up from the side and only use the tip of your brush. If you want a neat line, dab the first bit off. Don't pick so much up that you get paint in the ferrule. And then the last one was have your whole hand on the table, and if you want straight lines, keep the wrist still, paint from the arm. Hopefully that helps to improve some of the painting that we see around the whole school. So there are a lot of people who could work on those habits.